please welcome writer-director Chinonye Chukwu. Oh! You snuck up on me. I was like... That's my dog.
Oh, that's your dog! Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome, Chinonye.
Hi.
I've been such a big fan of yours. I love Clemency, and what an incredible follow-up with Till. When I introduced the film, I mentioned that one of the things that amazed me about this film is the fact that you didn't want to focus on Emmett Till and his tragedy. Instead, the focus and the point of view is solely from Mamie's world and his point of view. Can you tell us about that approach?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for being here, watching the film, staying through the Q&A. I only was interested in telling the story from Mamie's perspective, her emotional point of view, and make this film about her very specific journey, because without Mamie Till-Mobley, the world wouldn't know who Emmett Till was. She is the heartbeat of this story, and Black women are so often erased from the screen, from history, and I wanted to center her incredible story, her incredible journey in her rightful place in history.
Thank you, yes. But your mise-en-scène, the way you put the film together, I love the fact that it had this sort of Hollywood values to it. Everything from makeup to production design, there was this beauty to it. Can you tell us about your approach?
Absolutely. I mean, very early on when I was constructing my directorial vision for the film, I made the decision to have the world of the film, the mise-en-scène, to be bright, colorful, rich, and vibrant. I wanted the skin, the Black skin, to...
We're used to seeing Black skin to be matted.
Exactly. I wanted there to be a glow, a dimensionality, a depth to the skin, a vibrancy. I wanted people in bright colors. I wanted the wallpapers to be bright colors. So the heads of my department, Marcy Rogers, my incredible costume designer, Kurt Beach, production designer, Bobby Bukowski, a cinematographer, we all had a lot of conversations about colors and vibrancy and what colors will work well together with the production design and the wardrobe and the lighting. And Bobby and I decided to do a lot of underlighting. So we would have lights on the ground so it can hit the pupils in just the right way and make the pupils really dance and sing. And so those were all very early decisions that were made to make the film pop and to also show the vibrancy, the beauty of Black people, Black spaces, Black communities, and it represents a light inside of us that will never die, in spite of the inherent pain and sadness that can also come with being Black in the world.
I adore your approach to Mamie's looking at the body, and if we can deconstruct your language, the fact that the table blocks the body. It's not voyeuristic. The way that Mamie is looking at the body is you know, I'm putting words in your mouth. You know, talk about it.
Well, so my approach in doing that scene is through a humanizing lens. I knew that I didn't want the camera to be voyeur. And every time I am thinking about framing, composition, and shots, and all, it always goes back to whose scene is it? What is the emotional subtext? And so I knew that this is a scene that I wanted to really position Mamie's emotional experience. looking at Emmett's body, and preserve the privacy and the intimacy of that moment. So the table obstructs Emmett's body, right? And so we make this scene about Mamie. And then when we do show parts of his body, it's with Mamie. And so she's leading us in the journey of looking at Emmett's body. And we're capturing that. We're seeing her love and her care and her reconnection with her son, as opposed to the camera being a lot more distant and objectifying, and his body is spectacle. I wanted him to be still humanized in relation to always in relation to Mamie and what she's feeling and thinking. And I intentionally withheld seeing his face from that moment. And so we can preserve the power of when we do see his face in the whole body from when we're in the church. So I knew that when we see his body, it had to be specific, intentional, and sparing.
And did you connect, when you were plotting your mise-en-scène, did you connect Mamie's revealing the body and then her testimony in the trial? Because I was blown away, the connection.
Yes, absolutely. I knew that scene in the funeral home really had to be clear and really hit in order for us to get the connection for what she's saying in the testimony. We see, feel, and experience what she eventually testifies firsthand. So by the time we're at the testimony, like, we're with her.
Correct.
We're with her.
It's a single take. Did you plan it in advance that it was going to be the 6-minute uninterrupted take?
No, it was not planned. So I had 8 or 9 shots planned for that scene. And I thought I needed those shots to communicate what I wanted to communicate emotionally and psychologically. The first setup was Mamie's close-up. Mm-hmm. And after that first take, Danielle got a standing ovation from the crew, and I said, damn. And my mind started going, because I'm such a meticulous planner beforehand, but I'm so meticulous so I could throw things away and be present to the magical, spontaneous moments that happen before your eyes. And after that first take, I'm like, I think we can do this in a long take. So what that required is to make some framing composition adjustments to suggest and be the world beyond the frame.
The jury and the passing the information.
Focusing from the jury to Mamie so we could establish the spatial relationship, get the timing of the camera movement so we are dollying around her at the right time that connects to connect to the emotional moment of what she's saying when she's recalling Emmett's body, but also positioning the hands of the lawyers, the photos, the ring. So it's not about them, but we're clear about who is speaking. And so I realized as we were making those framing compositional adjustments and camera movement adjustments, that this is actually communicating everything that we need to communicate emotionally and psychologically, and then some. We are staying with Mamie in her emotional moment, and the camera, the camera is an extension of the gazes around her that are creating pressure on her. And so that was something that I knew that we had it, and I called the studio while we were shooting. I was like, please don't come for me, but I'm about to do something, y'all. And they believed in my artistry and artistic vision so much that they're like, if you think this is the best thing, go ahead. I don't believe in shooting coverage for coverage's sake,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when you
and the fact that every choice you make harks back to the theme. I mean, when I watched this film, I was literally, my head was exploding watching your choices that were so emotional at the same time intellectual, and the plotting, music, the Abel's.
Yes. Abel Kraseniowski is the composer of this film.
I was so struck by the fact, like, for example, when Mamie is looking at the body, the music doesn't go for the emotional aspect. It harps to her anger.
Yes. And that's one of the things that that's one of the first things that Abel and I talked about is I said I want the music to speak to the emotional subtext as opposed to underscoring what we physically see on screen. So that scene that you're talking about is a perfect example. What we're visually seeing is the sadness and the pain, but there is a bubbling rage inside Mamie that leads to her moment of decision. So Abel and I decided the music has to play to that. And so that was a big note, and also propulsion. We need the music to also keep the story forward, keep the energy forward, and keep the hope alive. Let's not stay in the pain. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Incredible. Tell us about working with Danielle. Yes. First of all, how did it come about you choosing her? She's a force of nature.
Yes, she deserves her own round of applause.
Yeah.
So Danielle Deadweiler sent in an audition tape. And after months of us looking for our Mamie, she just sent in a tape. And I knew of her, but I was not yet familiar with her work. If you watch the rest of her, like Station 11, we were just talking about Harder They Fall. I mean, she's incredible. Her audition tape was spectacular. And she only had the sides at the time, not the whole script. And one of the things that I look for when I cast actors, particularly leading actors, is can they tell a story with just their eyes? Can they hold and command a frame? Can they get underneath and in between the words? And Danielle just did all of that and then some. I called her back for a director's session using the scene in the funeral home intentionally because there's no dialogue. But I wanted to see if she was able to dig into the emotional and psychological beats throughout that scene that lead to Mamie's moment of decision. And so we talked extensively about all of those beats, and she killed it. And I knew that the person who's going to play Mamie, she and I were going to be in a partnership together because I really enjoy, I just love the craft of acting, and I really spend time with the actors that I work with. And so she was cast, and we spent months working on it before filming, and we went through every single emotional beat and nuance in the script multiple times. We dug into the research and talked about it every single day, talked about discoveries that were made. We had rehearsals with other actors. Like, we really went on a journey together. And so by the time we were on set, she had such an inherent emotional and psychological understanding of who Mamie Till-Mobley was.
Mm-hmm. I was struck with the journey that you take as you dive into the psychological trauma of Mamie. And can you tell us about that? And how difficult was it for Danielle to navigate that psychological trauma?
I mean, that's one of the many conversations we had before shooting, is what does self-care look like for all of us entering this journey? And we all knew the mission. We all knew the emotional and psychological toll that it could take on us. And so Danielle was especially great at having support systems around her, from therapists to her own family and community. I tend to be quite protective of the actors and crew that I work with. So we had a therapist on set every day, and I was constantly checking in with the actors. I was overly communicative. I asked Danielle to dictate to me when in the shooting schedule she would want us to shoot the scene in the funeral home, when in the shooting schedule she'd want us to shoot the scene in the train station, when would she be ready emotionally and psychologically. For Jalen, who plays Emmett Till, his mom was there every day. The parents of all the kids were there, and like right there on set. So when we shot the scene where Emmett was abducted, Jalen, after a take or two, asked if he can pause so he can get a hug from his mom. And so we stopped everything so he can get a hug from his mom. And if he were to tell me that he can't do any more takes, we would have been done. And, thankfully he persisted, but I mean, it's that kind of critical care that was shown to everyone that I think really helped create a safe space for them to really go deep and be vulnerable in their performances.
We're used to, the fact that we're used to it, I can't bear the fact that I'm saying that. We see films about the civil rights movement, and we see violence against black people on screen, and you do not show violence against black people in your film. Can you tell us about that choice?
When I first met with the producers, that was one of the things that I told them that I was not going to do. And that was like one of my non-negotiables. In addition to making this story so solely focused on Mamie's emotional journey and point of view, I knew that if I was going to be the one to make this film, I have absolutely no interest in showing physical violence against black bodies for a couple reasons. I mean, one, the story is about Mamie and her journey and her point of view, so narratively it wasn't necessary. Also, two, it was a way for me to show care for the story, care for audiences, and care for myself as well as a black person. We don't need it. And one of the things that I learned in making Clemency was the power of not showing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that could be just as or even more horrific than the showing.
Yeah, which parenthetically, you cinephiles, do yourself a favor, check out Clemency with Alfred Woodard and Aldous Hodge. One of the most incredible films.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The first scene, the scene at the department store, is so layered. Mm-hmm. You know, we see her shielding Emmett, but then at the same time we see aggression. You know, tell us about you as a writer and as a director, the importance of that first scene. Narratively, I did not want to only show or communicate the message that racism only exists in the South. You know, racism shows up and looks like a lot of different things, you know, and I mean, some of the most painful experiences of racism that I've had have been with self-identified white liberals, to be honest with you. And so I wanted to show that complexity and to show how it can look in different forms and how it's masked with this veneer of politeness from the security guard. But Mamie knows better, but she's protecting Emmett from that. And so I wanted to show the different layers and the insidiousness of racism, but I also wanted to show how Mamie was actively trying to shield Emmett from that and protect his naivete from that ugliness of the world. Yes. You know, tell us about...
I feel like we're in church.
Tell us about finding Jillian Hall, the young actor that plays Emmett. And
Jalen Hall sent in an audition tape.
Oh my goodness. What is it with you and audition tapes?
I know. I cast a wide net. I'm not allured by big names. I'm like, can you act?
You're terrific.
Are you ready
actors.
to go deep with me and be directed, you know? And so I was really thankful that the studio president, Alana Mayo of Orion Pictures, was totally down for that too when I told her, I just want the best person for this, even if they're not huge names. And she's like, done. So Jalen Hall sent in a tape, and I mean, he was 14 at the time. I'm not familiar with what the kids are watching, but apparently he's on a very popular show. And so he's had years of acting experience, which was great because so he's familiar with the hours and the grind, but he was also naturally talented and had a natural charm and charisma to him. And so I called him back to do a chem read with Danielle, and they immediately connected and hit it off. And he had swag and naivete and what was also great was that, you know, after casting him, and he was so great in the film, we screen in front of like high schoolers and middle schoolers, and he's like a rock star to them, like because of the show he's on, it's like the Beatles, and so but he's so humble, and he doesn't even like feel. I mean, literally, high school girls were crying when they met, like oh my god, I can't believe it's shit. I had no clue. I had no clue. And he's so humble and down to earth and so easy to work with. I knew none of that, and you would never tell on set. He has no ego, and he's so close with his mom, which was a plus, because his mom was such a huge emotional support system for him going into the making of this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you built such a love story between Mamie and him that when he's gone is such a loss for, the absence of him is deeply felt. Whoopi Goldberg, she's a producer, and she'd been behind the story for 20 years. Tell us about her journey and also casting her and working with her.
Yeah, Whoopi and the other producers have been trying to get this film made for almost 20 years, and they reached out to me 3 years ago, so they've had...
Was she planning to play
No.
Mamie?
Well, she was planning, like, years ago.
Years ago, 20 years ago.
Years ago. And then when I met her, she was just a producer, and we had asked her if she would be interested in playing Alma, after I'd written a draft of the script. And so, but when I first met her with the other producers, she was the nicest, most, I rarely have felt so seen and heard as an artist and as a Black woman than when I met Whoopi Goldberg for the first time. And to this day, she is the most generous human being I've met. Like, she's incredible, and she was so easy to direct, no ego. She just wanted to just dig into the work and do the best that she can to honor her role in the performance. And so we played with a lot of different options and adjustments on the day, and seeing her and Danielle together was just really special.
Did she tell you what was it about Mamie and this story 20 years ago that she was so involved with?
Well, she has said that, this is a story that's just so, as a Black person in the world, particularly in America, you're just so acutely aware of this story. And so this was a story that was just...
But this is not a Black story.
This is not a Black story
This
at
is an
all.
American story.
This is an American story. This is a story that transcends America. This is a reflection of us, and it's a call to action for us all, regardless of your identity, to be change agents in the world. And I think Whoopi and the rest of the producers and myself and everyone on this film really recognized that and was really excited about making a story that's a human story that people around the world will be able to see themselves in and really ask themselves, how can I contribute to the world to make it better?
And what would you, yes. What would you like us, the audience, to take out of your film and Mamie's story?
Well, so many things. One, I hope that you've really learned something about Mamie and all the people who are part of her story. I hope you're activated. I hope everyone is activated to really, like I said, be change agents in the world, but to whatever big or small, whatever difference that is, big or small, to get outside of your own bubbles and to realize that we're all connected, and to really ask yourself, how can I be allies? How can I be allies to people or persons? How can I help that people get access to voting? Midterms are, in a week? To vote if you can vote, to learn more about the people who are in the film, to tell people about the film, to spread the word about the film and let people know how you feel about the film and how it made you feel, and encourage people to not be afraid of seeing this film.
Yeah.
Which opened wide this weekend.
Yes, and it's doing extremely... The film, as dark as it gets, it is uplifting. Was that something that you were conscious when you were making the film, that we needed to, yes, bring us to navigate dark passages, but at the same time uplift?
Absolutely. As a Black woman in this world, my life is so much fuller than the pain and trauma that comes with being a Black woman in this world. I have so much joy and love and life and community in my living. And that is also what I wanted to reflect in the film. This story doesn't end at the not guilty verdict. You know, I wanted the film to end with hope and possibility, but also love and light and humanity, and hopefully that could inspire people, you know? And so I was very intentional about balancing the grief and the pain with the joy and the love and the light, because I've always believed that for myself, and what has been proven so true for my living, is that one of my greatest forms of resistance is my joy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't say this, I don't say this lightly. You're one of the favorite directors, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. You need to see Clemency, people. And see her superpower. I mean, it's incredible. And to hear you speak, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Please spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word, everybody.